come on, come on. I want to fail you, mate. Come on, dig, 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 dig. Come on, come on, come on. Keep going, keep going. Pushing, keep pushing. That's it, mate. Mask off, mate. That's it, and breathe. That's it. Keep working, mate. Spin those legs out, keep going. Okay, we're back. It's the post Lanzarote update. It's been 4 weeks, or this is week 5 since that good training block in Lanzarote. And I'm just going to run through what I've been up to. We did have some grand plans to do certain videos on certain topics, but the addition of this fella here has complicated things time-wise, and we've much focused our attention on training Bryn and getting him settled in over YouTube. So for the last 4 and in 5 weeks, including this one, I've pretty much hit my normal sweet spot of training, which is somewhere between 14 and 17 hours in that sort of bubble, and been super consistent across each of the 4 disciplines: swim, bike, run and gym, which has been really great. There haven't been any sort of monster sessions or anything, you know, out of the ordinary. Just some real consistent training and hitting sort of a key session in each discipline, which I'll go through now. I've actually been swimming a little bit less in the last 4 or 5 weeks. Been swimming only 3 times a week, still hitting about 10 to 11k of swimming, but there's been only 3 swims. Some of that's to do with the dog, for logistical reasons. Leaving him in the morning is obviously difficult with both Amy and I, so we have to sort of take turns, but also allowed me to sort of really focus on a VO2, a threshold and an aerobic session each week. The bike, the goal has basically been volume, so trying to maintain or keep pedaling sort of 8 to 10 hours a week. Basically only do 1 key session, which has been VO2, and that's been the classic sort of ramp up from 40-20 sort of type intervals all the way through to this week was 5 by 4 minutes VO2, and I think we're pretty much done with that block now, leading into some racing, which I'll come on to. I also did my first club ride with Verulam, which is the cycling club in St Albans just down the road. It was quite good to go out with people. It actually was, believe it or not, in the 4 or 5 years I've been cycling, the first time I've ever done an official group ride. I've done a few intro rides with many clubs, but I've never taken the leap. So that was really good. Met some good people, and definitely will try and go a couple times a month to sort of get me out the door, maybe get me pedaling a bit harder and a bit longer than I normally would if I go out on my own. Run wise has been the best bit of my training, to be honest. I have basically run 4 to 4.5 hours, which has equated to about 48-55k a week every week now for the last 10 weeks. So even you know, including Lanzarote and around Christmas time. So I'm really starting to see the benefits of that real consistent mileage. This week and next week it ramps up a little bit, and then I'm going into some racing. But it's looking really good, and I'm really happy with where my run fitness is at. And lastly, in the gym, 2 gym sessions. They haven't changed now for about 10 weeks, which is not unusual. I think people overcomplicate the gym, or coaches do, and they give them a different session every week or every couple of weeks. And instead, I've just done that progressive overload over the 3-4 key movements that we're focusing on, and I'm seeing the weight come up. Not to brag, but I had to even buy some more weight this year, as I'm lifting more than I have previously on some of the key movements, which is really good. So what else have we been up to? I did go and do some lab testing with Box Nutrition. It's a friend of mine, Jack Braniff from university, who runs it up in Birmingham. That's probably what most of the footage in this video is, as we did get some good footage of me sort of suffering. I did a slightly unusual thing where I did both a run and bike test in one day, and in fact I only had sort of 15-20 minutes between the run and the bike. But we weren't really there to sort of see the sort of max numbers that I could do and sort of impress myself or anybody. It was more to work out or confirm some training zones. So at a high level, for those that are interested, I did a run test, which was a 1 minute ramp up over time, getting faster. We also included an incline increase over that time of the run test. And the goal was to basically get my heart rate as high as possible. We did it with a ventilation mask, so no lactate was taken, but so we got VT1 and VT2, which is the ventilation thresholds rather than lactate thresholds. But they sort of align when you test both together anyway. Taking lactate while you're doing a max run test is very difficult, as you have to keep stopping until your heart rate comes down and you end up with a sawtooth graph rather than a sort of straight line. Overall, the key outputs were my VO2 max was 71.6, which shows I have a huge engine, which we kind of expected. That's definitely above average, etc., in terms of compared to the average Joe on the street. The couple of takeaways for me personally were my heart rate was a little lower in the certain zones that we would focus on than we expected. Some of that might be because of the time of year. So the sort of threshold heart rate that it came out at, I actually have run a marathon at higher than that heart rate. So we can take the numbers with a little bit of flex to them. But I'm definitely, in the last couple of weeks since that test, when I've been doing my sort of tempo and threshold sets on the run, I have been keeping my heart rate a little lower than usual. We also learned where my body switches between the fuels from fat to carb. Now I did mess this up a little bit, as I had 2 iced spiced buns from M&S on the way up about 90 minutes before the test, which is a no-no. So it didn't look as good as potentially we expected it to do in terms of my ability to use fat as fuel, but it still gave us a rough gauge that running around 130 beats a minute heart rate for me is where my sort of optimum fat burning zone is, which is where I do a lot of my easy running, and if I do fasted running, that is sort of where I'm at. So confirmation of that was pretty good. I then did a bike test, which was a longer test. This one we did do lactate and ventilation. Number was around 68, 69 for the VO2 max. Now this wasn't, I was hoping for it to be a bit higher than the run, but the combination of doing both on the same day and the test being a bit longer and different wouldn't necessarily get that true VO2 max. So it's something I will go back and do at some point to sort of have my true VO2 max on the bike, hopefully. But what it did confirm is that elusive LT1 LT2, VT1 VT2, where it is at heart rate and power wise. My LT1 was around between 240 and 250 watts, which is really good. That's sort of where my Ironman power was for Wales and Roth. So that's sort of spot on in terms of where you would try and ride at for that period of time potentially, or be conditioned to. And then my LT2, the heart rate was around 162, 164, and that's somewhere between 300 and 325 watts. So we did the step test in 25 watt increments. So it's somewhere in there, which aligns to where I've had my FTP for the last 18 months or so, which is at 320. I am pretty confident that it maybe is a little higher than that if you were to use an FTP number, but effectively we're in the ballpark. You do have those days where your FTP number feels great and you have those days where it doesn't. So although I don't believe FTP is an absolute number as such, and Billy doesn't coach like that either, that there is some flex, you know, day to day, week to week, as you feel fitter, the fatigue you're at, etc. And we also learned the carb versus fat balance there. Now I had a gel between the two tests. Obviously I needed to kind of fuel myself a little bit, so the numbers weren't, you know, nailed down exactly, but effectively up to 200 watts I'm burning fat, or that's the predominant source, and after 200 watts I start to use carbs, which again completely aligns with the training I have done and have been doing for years, where if I go out for an easy spin, quite often it's somewhere between 160, 190 watts. I don't eat a lot of carbs, you know, I'm not putting in the 120 sort of grams an hour that I would for longer stuff. I sort of am more at 60 sort of grams an hour. I did do all this testing back in early February. I'm not just copying what Sam Long has come out and doing and what he's doing with Dan Plews, which seems to be a trend now, or will probably become a trend. But these things are really cool and really interesting to find out, and I'd encourage anyone who is interested or wants to improve their sort of Ironman power, etc., or their fueling to really know these numbers. What else have we been up to? We've obviously got this fella. He's going to be my training partner for 2024 if he doesn't chew my Kona cushion. We're quite happy with him. He's settled in well. He's slept through the night now for the last 4 nights, so we're not seeing our sleep as disrupted as we thought it might be. And we can't wait to get him outdoors in a couple of weeks once he had his last vaccines recently. So we've got a few weeks to wait, and then he'll be out chasing birds and all that sort of good stuff. My bike is now sorted. So previously there was a video about my bike build and I still had a few bits to do. Watchshop very kindly swapped some parts out for me. I've had those fitted on and we've reconfigured the front end to align to that, and it's now ready. The only thing missing is a set of race wheels, which once they're back in stock in parcours, I will be getting a set ready to go. And that's about it. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, I've got next week, we're going to try and commit to a video a day to cover my week as a full. So some short videos to go through the week rather than a half-an-hour video of my week in training. I'm going to try and capture Monday through Sunday to go through my general routine a little more and cover some of the things outside of training that I do or people do to balance things, how they organise their life, what supplements, what I eat, etc. And then the 2 weeks after that, back-to-back weekends, I've got some racing. Was going to do a race announcement video, but I'm not professional enough to announce my races, and I've only entered 2 or 3 if you include the London Marathon so far, and the race I intend to do in May I haven't actually paid for yet, so it's probably best not to tell the internet about it at the moment. But we're going to do the duathlon champs in Derbyshire on the 5th of March. I've never done a duathlon before, but keen to give it a go. I really want to ride my bike in a race scenario a few times before May, so that presented a good opportunity. And then I will be heading up to the north to take on all the northern lads that are good at duathlon, triathlon. Me and Lewis Eccleston owe them a good race after me DNFing last year in the Firefighters duathlon, and very keen to race some of the lads up there and see how things come out. I'm just hoping and praying that Lewis has done a bit of training. He had a sort of 7-month sabbatical to build his house, and I think he fell off his bike on his first ride back the other week. So yeah, I might be dragging Lewis around a race course. And Amy's got to join a meeting, so we'll wrap it up there. Say bye, Bryn. Please follow me on Instagram. My name's Triathlon Bryn. Over and out.